Hey, what's going on out there, YouTube? This is SCL0320 representing JVS. So I'm back here again for another review. I got an early screening to see Spider-Man Homecoming. I went into the movie with very, low expectations because a lot of people don't know that Batman is my favorite superhero, but my second favorite is Spider-Man. And I loved what Tobey Maguire did with Spider-Man 1 and 2. I love what actually Andrew Garfield brought to the role of Peter Parker. I actually enjoyed the Amazing Spider-Man 1. It was just the three, for Spider-Man, like the initial, and then the Amazing Spider-Man 2, that really kind of let me down. And I know that, when Tom Holland got casted, a lot of people were hyped for him. I was actually following him on Instagram when he actually did get hired. And I was kind of like, he could possibly pull this off. But the bigger thing is, a lot of people were like, he did a great job of Civil War, but could he, hold up on his own as Spider-Man, as Peter Parker? And in a lot of ways, this is actually, to me, one of the best interpretations of Spider-Man from the comics brought onto film. Because when you think about the old, Spider-Man when he's in high school, when he's dealing with these teen angst, I think the best one I would say would be Sensational Spider-Man, the cartoon series, brought that on key when you got the elements with the people in high school and him, his responsibility of who and what he is, with the power that he has, with the power bigger than even what he's even grown into. And I think they were able to showcase that very well in this film. But let's go ahead and just dissect it. So in terms of the visual effects for this film, they spared no expense for this one. Like some of the aerial, fights, the technology, some of the things they were able to do with the villain, the Vulture, with Spider-Man, with just the elements in general, I think they did a really good job as far as the visual effects. I think there were certain moments that were kind of spotty, where it's kind of like when it was like a close-up with him with his costume. I didn't know whether or not the cloth was real or if it was actually CG. I don't like that necessarily. I think I actually like the realistic costume from the old school, whereas with this one I didn't know whether or not it was CG or whether or not it was actually real a lot of the times, but I think that what they were able to do with this one, with the technology that the suit actually had, I thought they did a really good job with it, because there was some actual really good dialogue with with Peter Parker trying to discover what the suit could do, what he could do with it, with his friend Ned. And I think they did a really good job as far as the visual effects. I think the action moments were really dope. But I think the biggest thing is the cinematography. The cinematography, when there was close-up shots for Peter, when there are close-up shots with him interacting with his friends, but even more so like the serious tone moments with the second act specifically, I think they were able to capture that very well, because it actually kind of meant something to me when it was going down. I was kind of just like, oh, wow, what is really happening right here? But let's talk about the standouts as far as the acting. I'm going to say that, and this might be my bias, because 1989 Batman was one of my first movies I've ever seen, one of my favorite movies I've ever seen, and Michael Keaton knocked it out of the park as Batman. Now, a lot of people say that, Christian Bale was the best Bruce Wayne, or even, Ben Affleck is the best Bruce Wayne, but a lot of people cannot deny that Michael Keaton brought it as Batman. And I gotta say, he brought it as Vulture. Like, he stole the show in so many different ways, because not only was he menacing, you understood his action. You understood why he was being the way he was. You understood his frustration. I think they were able to flesh his character out very well. And from just the very first opening up until a certain action that happens midway going into the transition to the second act. Now, the other standout, of course, is going to be Tom Holland. Tom Holland does a really good job as Peter Parker, does a good job as Spider-Man. I think he does a better job from his voiceover work and his talent. I think he definitely is a gymnast. He definitely is charismatic. I think he's very intuitive when he actually has a conversation. But he's not quick-witted. He's not that, when Tobey Maguire is Spider-Man, he's very quick-witted with some of the banter. Definitely Andrew Garfield is really quick with the banter. He hasn't developed into that yet. There are certain dialogues that happen throughout some of the conversations he has with his friends that I kind of okay, I can see him moving into this, but he's not gotten to that characteristic yet. But I think that he does a really good job from what he's able to pull from the role, because there were certain moments that were emotional beats with him and Aunt May, who was actually, Aunt May was played by Marisa Tomei. A lot of people kind of are like, she's kind of like eye candy for the film, but that wasn't the case. Aunt May was actually very utilized in this one, more so than she actually was in some of the other films. I think the other films, it was kind of like she was symbolic of like, reminder of Uncle Ben. There was no feeling of Uncle Ben in this film. Matter of fact, I think she was just complimenting him as a really good surrogate mother, kind of being there for him, kind of helping him. And then the other part of that would be Tony Stark with...
No. Zendaya.
With Robert Downey Jr. And Robert Downey Jr., with the way that he was able to actually portray the character, I thought it was going to be kind of like a little bit too much, excessive. But I think they were able to do just enough to bring Peter to this understanding of realism of what it takes to be a superhero. Because at first I was kind of like, this is going to be really gimmicky. I thought it was, the first act I saw already in the clips and in the trailers, I thought it was going to be a little bit too much. But I think what they were able to do with Tony Stark, they did a really good job in the small amount of time he was there. Because I thought they were going to overexpose him and oversaturate him. Matter of fact, they did something towards the third act that actually corrected some of the things that I disliked about Iron Man 3. And I feel like Tony has progressed, as a character. I thought that Robert Downey Jr. did a really good job with that. But to my wife's credit, Zendaya actually plays the role of Michelle. And she's
I like her.
I don't know how to put her character.
She is a teenager.
Well, no, she's very introverted. She's very intellectual. She loves books. She loves kind of sticking to herself. But then she follows along
the
with...
best, cool little random comments.
She does.
I like Zendaya's character. I feel like she's one of my favorites in the movie. Like her little moments on set, you get to feel her in the movie. And I think it's dope.
Yeah, I think she does a really good job for the role that they were giving her. That's all I can really say from there, because the other characters, what was his name? Ned? One of his best friends. Ned, at first, I kind of was like, this is going to get really old really fast. The very first act, for me personally, I don't know if I necessarily liked, because it was so childish and kiddish. I just didn't like it. But you thought that the first act was actually understandable based on them being in high school, and based on them being kids.
Yeah.
And that was the reason for that. But towards the third and second act, specifically the second act, there's something that happens that really catches everybody off guard. And I thought that was a turning point for me as far as with the story. Where other characters I'll say, man, I can't say but so much. Liz is an interesting character played by Laura Harrier, because her connection with Peter is really interesting, because Peter definitely likes her, but does she kind of even have any kind of feeling towards him? It was kind of it was this weird kind of banter, because there's a lot of different interactions of high school angst that happens. I think that they do a really good job of keeping that high school feel. But I think that the acting can kind of come off really spottish in certain places for certain people. It's definitely not the best, but I think that's impressionable for the younger audience. I think the younger audience can be like, that's definitely what, a school environment kind of be like. This is definitely kind of what, different areas in New York would look like. And so I think it was good for what it was actually given, but it was just, for me, there's some specific emotional beats that Tom Holland was able to pull from me what the essence of Spider-Man is. And I can't describe them in this one. And another thing about this film, there's a lot of Easter eggs. There's Easter eggs all over the place. I can't even talk about certain people, certain characters, because there are Easter eggs all over the place. All I can say that Michael Keaton was a standout. Tom Holland made a great Spider-Man. Was he the best Peter Parker? I don't know. And what they were able to do in the second act, so throw the lid over me, in that I was like, okay, I thought that I knew everything from the trailers. No, there are certain things that were left out of the trailers that I really loved. And there was one moment in the third act, I legit was kind of feeling emotional. And I can't even bring up why, but I'll bring it up a little bit later on. I'm going to give Spider-Man Homecoming an 8.5 out of 10. That might go up. That might go up to a 9. I can't say why, but I feel like the second time I watch it, I might appreciate it more, because the first part, I was just kind of thrown off. I was kind of like, this isn't going to be this, but I'm going to keep with my 8.5 for right now. hopefully y'all definitely go and check out Spider-Man Homecoming. It's definitely got replay value. It's definitely got that action moments. This is acting spotty sometimes, but as far as what they were able to do interactionally and what they were able to bring out of the certain characters in the MCU, as much as the specific newcomer that is Spider-Man to the MCU, I'm very appreciative of. So great job on that. Keep it locked. JVS, we ain't gonna stop. Talk to you guys later. Peace.